Okay, so now I'm going to delve into the practical application of all this information with a few demonstrations. For perspective, I'll start with a non-altered approach, using the notes of a C Mixolydian scale to resolve the C dominant 7 chord to each of the notes in an F triad. Now here's a very similar approach, but using a flat 9 on the C7 chord. Listen for how this one altered extension increases the sense of resolution. What you heard in that example is the effect of using just one of the altered notes. Scales can be very helpful to the improviser, but more often than not, you won't play a scale in its entirety. So in the next example, I'm just going to add one more note, the sharp 9. If you're learning how to improvise, I recommend focusing on the root, flat 9, and sharp 9 when you're dealing with an altered dominant chord. Not only do they strongly imply the altered sound, but it's relatively easy to hear how to resolve them in a melodic context. Taking that approach one step further, I can extend the line from the sharp 9 to the major third. Now I want to point out that if I start a line on the 5th, play the Mixolydian scale up to the root, and then flat 9, sharp 9 up to the 3rd, I'm following the contours of a G whole half diminished scale, which is the same as a C half whole diminished scale. Given that G minor is the 2 chord to a C dominant 7th as a 5 chord, it all starts to come together. Now here's an approach that relates to tritone substitution. The tritone substitute for C dominant 7th is F sharp dominant 7th. The 2 chord connected to C dominant 7th is a G minor 7, and the 2 chord connected to F sharp dominant 7 is C sharp minor 7. Since C7 and F sharp are tritone substitutes, the related 2 chords can be as well. If I play the first 5 notes of G Dorian followed by the first 5 notes of C sharp Dorian, I get the sound of tritone substitution as a way to alter a dominant chord. Relating to that clip, I want to point out something that plays up the symmetry of the diminished scale. If you take the first 4 notes of G Dorian and follow them with the first 4 notes of C sharp Dorian, you wind up again with the G whole half diminished scale. If you started the pattern on C sharp, it would be a C sharp whole half diminished scale, and the same would be true if you started on E or B flat. The whole half diminished scale can be seen as the first 4 notes of 2 Dorian scales. It's a pretty easy way to think about it, and when you consider that there are only 3 unique diminished scales, it's not a very hard thing to get under your fingers. And the functionality of the diminished scale is substantial. In the next example, I'm going to use a scale that isn't any of the 4 that I've talked about previously. It's the harmonic minor scale built on the 1 chord but played over the 5 altered chord. So let's take a look at why this works. The notes of an F harmonic minor are F, G, A flat, B flat, C, D flat, E natural, and F. Within these notes, we see the 4 chord tones of the C dominant 7 chord, C, E, G, and B flat, along with the flat 9 and flat 13. The F natural is not a note that we'd normally choose to play on a C dominant 7 chord, but in this case it does telegraph the root of where we're heading, so in that regard it works. Now let's talk about the altered scale as a mode of the jazz minor scale. C altered is the 7th mode of D flat jazz minor. They contain the same notes. The jazz minor scale is the simplest of all the minor scales. It's a major scale with a lowered third. In traditional or classical harmony, that would be the ascending form of the melodic minor scale. So this is sometimes called the jazz melodic minor. The difference would be that in jazz, the scale is the same in both directions. Now, using the D-flat jazz minor scale as a substitute for C altered can be a lot to get your head around. So I'm going to show you a couple of approaches using just some of the notes from that scale. In the first example, I'm going to use the 3 notes of a D-flat minor triad. These notes D-flat, F flat or E, and A flat represent the flat 9, major third, and flat 13th on a C altered chord. In the next example, I'm going to add 2 more notes from the D-flat minor 6 pentatonic, the 4th and the 6th. When I add these notes to the D-flat minor triad, I wind up with the 3rd and the flat 7th, the cheeseburger notes, and 3 altered extensions, all packaged neatly in the context of a pentatonic scale. Now here's a couple more examples of altered dominants in the context of a 1-6-2-5 progression. And now, here are all the melodic approaches I described with a backing track that moves from dominant to altered dominant to minor.